In the ancient city of Carthage, a young boy named Hannibal Barca stood before his father, Hamilcar Barca, the great Carthaginian general. The flames of the temple flickered on the boy's determined face. Hamilcar placed his hand on Hannibal's shoulder and said, "Swear to me, my son, that you will never be a friend of Rome." Hannibal, only 9 years old, looked up at the Roman statues captured from past battles and whispered, "I swear." That night, as Carthage slept, Hamilcar told his son about Rome's betrayal. After the First Punic War, Rome had taken Sicily, gold, and Carthaginian pride. The city still struggled under the heavy losses. "They will never stop," Hamilcar said bitterly. "They want all the world. You must stop them." Hannibal listened, his heart filled with fire. Years later, after Hamilcar's death, Hannibal trained with soldiers in Spain. His leadership and brilliance grew. The men loved him, calling him the Lion of Carthage. Yet, deep inside, that childhood vow still burned like a scar. Every Roman victory reminded him of his father's dying words, "Never forgive Rome." Years passed. Hannibal became a strong and fearless commander under Hasdrubal the Fair in Carthaginian Spain. When Hasdrubal was assassinated, the army shouted one name: Hannibal! The soldiers lifted him onto their shields and declared him general. Spain became the new heart of Carthage's empire. Hannibal strengthened cities, built alliances with Iberian tribes, and prepared his army for war. But his eyes were always fixed north, toward Rome. He began planning a bold campaign that no one in history had ever dared, to attack Rome itself, not by sea, but by marching over the mighty Alps with elephants and thousands of men. His advisors warned him. "It's impossible," Hannibal replied calmly. "Then we will find a way, or make one." Meanwhile, in Rome, the Senate heard rumors of Hannibal's growing power. Senators like Quintus Fabius Maximus whispered, "He is dangerous. If he crosses into Italy, the gods themselves may tremble." Rome's ally, the city of Saguntum, stood between Hannibal and his dream. Hannibal knew capturing it would mean war, but he didn't care. For 8 brutal months, his army surrounded Saguntum. The defenders fought bravely, calling to Rome for help, but none came. The walls burned, and the streets ran with fire and fear. When the city finally fell, Hannibal rode through its ruins. "This," he said to his officers, "is the first stone in Rome's grave." In Rome, the Senate exploded with fury. "He has violated our treaty!" cried Lucius Cornelius Lentulus. The ambassadors demanded Carthage surrender Hannibal. But the Carthaginian council refused. War was declared. The Second Punic War had begun, the greatest struggle of the ancient world. Winter. Snow. Mountains taller than the sky. Hannibal's army began their legendary march across the Alps, 50,000 soldiers, 9,000 horses, and 37 elephants. The path was death itself. Avalanches buried men alive. Frostbite took fingers and feet. The tribes of the mountains attacked from above. Yet Hannibal rode at the front, cloak whipping in the icy wind. "Follow me!" he shouted. "Rome lies beyond these mountains." After weeks of suffering, they finally stood on the other side. Below them stretched the plains of Italy. Hannibal looked down, his eyes hard with triumph. "We have reached the land of our enemy," he said. "Now we bring them fear." At the river Trebia, Hannibal faced his first test in Italy. The Roman consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus marched to meet him, confident in his legions. But Hannibal was ready. He sent his Numidian cavalry to lure the Romans across the freezing river at dawn. Soaked and shivering, they met Hannibal's waiting army on the far bank. Suddenly, Carthaginian cavalry charged from behind, and hidden soldiers under Mago, Hannibal's brother, attacked from the rear. The Romans were crushed, thousands dead, the rest scattered. Hannibal watched from a hilltop as the red banners of Rome fell into the mud. He turned to Maharbal and said, "This is just the beginning." The Romans wanted revenge for Trebia. A new consul, Gaius Flaminius, led a fresh army north to trap Hannibal. But Hannibal was already waiting. He chose the perfect battlefield, the misty shores of Lake Trasimene. He hid his entire army behind the hills and forests. As the Romans marched along the lake's narrow road, fog covered the land. Then, with a single horn blast, chaos erupted. Hannibal's troops burst from the mist, elephants trumpeting, spears flying. The Romans had no room to form ranks. They were slaughtered where they stood. Thousands drowned trying to escape into the lake. When the fog cleared, the ground was red. Rome had lost another army, and Flaminius lay dead among his men. Hannibal whispered, "The gods have favored our cause." Rome was shaken. 2 massive defeats in a row, their pride was bleeding. In desperation, the Senate appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator. Unlike other generals, Fabius avoided direct battle. Instead, he shadowed Hannibal, cutting his supply lines, burning crops, and forcing him to march hungry. The soldiers mocked Fabius, calling him the delayer. But he didn't care. "We cannot defeat him by strength," Fabius told the Senate. "Only by time." Hannibal admired his cunning. "At last," he said, "Rome has found a man who understands me." Yet Fabius's patience frustrated Rome's citizens. They wanted victory, not waiting. The Senate replaced him, a decision they would soon regret. The year 216 BC. Rome raised the largest army in its history, 80,000 men, to crush Hannibal once and for all. The generals Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro led them to Cannae, a dusty plain in southern Italy. Hannibal smiled when he saw their massive numbers. "They think size is victory," he told Mago. "Let's teach them otherwise." As the Romans advanced, Hannibal placed his weakest troops in the center and his strongest on the sides. The Romans pushed forward, and the center bent inward, forming a deadly trap. Suddenly, the Carthaginian cavalry circled around, closing from behind. The Romans were surrounded, trapped in a killing circle. By nightfall, 70,000 Romans lay dead. It was the bloodiest day in Rome's history. News of Cannae spread like a storm. In Rome, mothers wept, senators fell silent, and the temples filled with prayers. Out of 80,000, barely 10,000 survived. Never before had Rome been so close to destruction. Many allies deserted Rome, joining Hannibal. Cities in southern Italy opened their gates to him. Even Capua, the second largest city, welcomed the Carthaginian hero. Hannibal urged him, "Let's march to Rome now. Within 5 days we'll dine in the Senate." Hannibal shook his head. "The time is not right." Hannibal sighed. "You know how to win a battle, Hannibal, but not how to use it." It was a wound that would never heal between them. After Cannae, Hannibal made Capua his winter base. The city offered luxury, warm baths, fine food, and entertainment. For the first time, his soldiers tasted comfort after years of war. But comfort can be poison. Discipline weakened. Soldiers grew lazy. Some officers warned, "We are forgetting why we came." Hannibal agreed, but it was too late. His army's spirit had softened. Meanwhile, Rome refused to surrender. They raised new armies, trained new generals, and swore never to bow. "As long as one Roman breathes," said the Senate, "Rome stands." Winter passed, and Hannibal prepared to march again, but the war had changed. The hunter was beginning to slow, and the prey was learning to fight back. While Hannibal enjoyed his victories in Italy, a young Roman officer named Publius Cornelius Scipio watched and learned. He had seen his father wounded at the Trebia, and he had survived Cannae as a mere youth. But instead of fear, Scipio gained determination. In the Senate, the older men argued over who could stop Hannibal. Scipio stood up and said calmly, "Give me Spain. I will strike Carthage where it bleeds." They laughed at first. He was too young, too untested. But Rome had no choice. So, they gave him command in Iberia. There, Scipio trained his army with discipline and intelligence, using Hannibal's own tactics against his brothers. He captured New Carthage with brilliant speed, freeing prisoners, earning loyalty, and proving himself a true leader. The Romans began to whisper his name with new hope. Scipio, the man who might save Rome. In Spain, the war burned fiercely. Hannibal's brothers, Hasdrubal Barca and Mago, fought to keep Carthage's power alive. But Scipio was clever. He struck fast, cutting supply lines and winning over local tribes. At the Battle of Becula, Scipio used the terrain to trap Hasdrubal's army. Carthaginian soldiers fought bravely but were outmaneuvered. Hasdrubal barely escaped, leaving Spain weakened. Scipio walked among the fallen after victory. "This land," he said, "is no longer Carthaginian. Spain belongs to Rome." News of the defeat reached Hannibal in Italy. For the first time, he felt the shadow of Rome's comeback. "Who leads their armies now?" he asked. When he heard the name, Scipio, he frowned. "Then I faced the son of the man I once defeated." Desperate to save his brother, Hasdrubal Barca decided to march from Spain to Italy, the same dangerous path Hannibal had taken years earlier. His goal was to join Hannibal's army and crush Rome together. The journey was brutal but successful. He crossed the Alps with fewer men, but he made it. Yet fate was cruel. Roman spies learned of his movements. The Roman consuls Gaius Claudius Nero and Marcus Livius Salinator set a deadly trap at the Metaurus River. In a fierce night battle, Hasdrubal fought bravely but was surrounded. Rather than be captured, he charged into the Roman lines and died with his sword in hand. Days later, his head was thrown into Hannibal's camp by Roman soldiers. Hannibal stared at it silently, his face pale. "Rome," he whispered, "you win nothing, but you destroy everything." After Hasdrubal's death, Hannibal's army was weakened, isolated, and far from home. He still held parts of southern Italy, but his dream of destroying Rome was fading. The Roman armies avoided direct battle. They starved him, cornered him, and retook one city after another. Even his allies began to lose faith. At night, Hannibal would stand on a hill, looking toward the north where his brother had fallen. Maharbal once found him there and said softly, "The gods are cruel, my friend." Hannibal replied, "No. They simply favor the patient." But in his heart he knew, time had turned against him. By 204 BC, Rome was ready to end the war. Scipio proposed a bold plan. "We will take the fight to Carthage itself." The Senate hesitated. Sending an army to Africa was dangerous, but Scipio's confidence convinced them. As his legions sailed across the sea, the people of Carthage panicked. Hannibal was still in Italy, too far to help. Scipio landed near Utica and quickly defeated Carthaginian forces under Syphax, the Numidian king allied with Carthage. Flames lit the African night as Roman fire spread through enemy camps. Carthage sent a desperate message across the sea. "Come home, Hannibal. Carthage needs you." Hannibal received the message in silence. His eyes hardened. "So," he said, "after all these years, the war returns to where it began." When Hannibal landed back in Africa after 16 long years in Italy, the people of Carthage cheered. He was older, his beard gray, his eyes weary, but the fire in his heart still burned. The city had changed. The proud empire of his youth was broken, its armies scattered, its spirit dim. But when he walked through the gates in armor, hope returned. Children shouted his name, and old soldiers saluted him with tears. That night, the council of Carthage met. "Scipio is near," they warned. Hannibal nodded. "Then let him come. One last battle, and the gods shall judge us both." As he looked out over the sea, memories of his father, of Saguntum, of the Alps flashed before him. "Everything," he murmured, "comes back to this." Before battle, Scipio and Hannibal met face to face on an open plain near Zama. There were no swords drawn, only two minds sharper than steel. Hannibal spoke first. "We have both seen enough blood, Roman. Let us end this war with peace." Scipio replied calmly, "You ask for peace now, when Carthage is weak? You asked for war when you were strong." Hannibal smiled faintly. "Perhaps I was young then. But today, I know, even victory does not heal what war destroys." They parted without agreement. Both men knew what awaited them the next morning. As Scipio rode back to camp, he told his aide, "Tomorrow, history will choose between us." The sun rose red over the African desert. Hannibal lined up his elephants in front, his final hope to break Rome's lines. Scipio, cool and focused, had planned for this. When the elephants charged, the Roman trumpets screamed, confusing the beasts, sending them back toward their own men. Then came the infantry clash, Carthaginians shouting their last cries, Romans pushing forward in tight formation. Dust and screams filled the air. In the final charge, Scipio's cavalry, led by Laelius and the Numidian prince Massinissa, struck from behind, just as Hannibal once did at Cannae. The trap was reversed. When the dust settled, Carthage was broken. Hannibal's army was gone. He sat upon a rock, sword at his feet, and whispered, "So this is how the gods repay courage." The war was over. Carthage signed a crushing peace treaty, surrendering ships, gold, and freedom. Rome became the master of the Mediterranean. Hannibal returned home in silence. The people still respected him, but the Senate feared his influence. To save Carthage from punishment, Hannibal became a statesman, reducing taxes and rebuilding trade. But his success made enemies. Roman envoys demanded his arrest, claiming he still plotted revenge. One night, knowing Rome would never stop hunting him, Hannibal fled the city he had once vowed to protect. He turned once to look back at the walls of Carthage, his heart heavy. "They will not let me live," he said softly, "and I will not let them take me." Hannibal wandered from land to land, from Tyre to Antioch, from Crete to Bithynia, a legend without a home. Kings welcomed him, fearing and admiring his mind. He taught them strategy, built fortresses, and dreamed of one more chance to strike at Rome. But Rome never forgot him. They sent messages to every ruler. "Deliver us, Hannibal." Even in exile, his name terrified them. In the end, betrayed by allies, Hannibal realized his time had come. "Let us free Rome from her fears," he said calmly. Taking poison from a ring, he whispered, "Hannibal ends what Hannibal began." As the poison spread, he smiled faintly, not in defeat, but in peace. For though his body would die, his name would live forever. Years after Hannibal's death, Rome ruled without rival. Its legions stretched from Spain to Greece, its navy ruled the seas. But even in their triumph, Roman generals whispered his name with respect and fear. Children grew up hearing tales of the monster from Carthage, the general who crossed the Alps with elephants. Roman soldiers were taught to study his battles. "If you want to defeat your enemy," said one old commander, "first learn from Hannibal." In the Senate, Scipio Africanus, now old and sick, confessed to a friend, "Of all men I have faced, none taught me more than Hannibal Barca. He was my enemy, and my greatest teacher." Rome had destroyed his army, his city, and his people, but could never erase his genius. Carthage rebuilt itself slowly after the war, trading, farming, surviving. But Rome's jealousy never faded. Every success of Carthage was seen as a threat. Roman Senator Cato the Elder ended every speech with the same words: "Carthago delenda est, Carthage must be destroyed." Finally, in 149 BC, Rome attacked again. The Third Punic War began, but this time, there was no Hannibal to defend the city. The Carthaginians fought bravely for 3 years until the walls finally fell. The Roman general Scipio Aemilianus, grandson of Scipio Africanus, wept as he watched Carthage burn. "Such will be the fate of Rome one day," he whispered. The proud city was gone, but its memory would haunt history forever. Centuries later, travelers crossing the Alps spoke of strange echoes in the snow, the sound of trumpets, the roar of elephants, the cries of unseen armies. They said it was the ghost of Hannibal still leading his men through the mountains. Poets and historians wrote about his courage and madness. Some called him a hero, others a demon. But all agreed, no one had ever dared what he did. Even Roman children, when frightened, were told, "Sleep, or Hannibal will come for you." Yet deep down, many Romans admired him more than they feared him. He had shown them the limits of power, and the price of pride. In military academies from Rome to modern Europe, Hannibal's tactics became lessons for generations. Napoleon studied him. Wellington respected him. Even in faraway lands, commanders whispered his strategies before battle. His double envelopment at Cannae became the model for perfect battlefield encirclement, studied by generals for over 2,000 years. Hannibal's name came to mean more than a man. It became a symbol of determination, brilliance, and defiance against impossible odds. In one ancient inscription found near Carthage, historians read, "He crossed where no man could, and fought where no man dared." That was Hannibal's true victory, not the battles he won, but the minds he inspired. The story ends where it began, in memory and legend. Carthage and Rome are long gone, their empires dust. But the story of Hannibal and Scipio lives on, the tale of two men who defined an age. One born to destroy, one born to defend, both bound by destiny. If Hannibal taught the world how to fight, Scipio taught it how to endure. Together, they wrote a chapter of history that can never be erased. As centuries passed, artists painted them, writers glorified them, and historians debated their choices. Yet the truth remains simple: both men sought greatness, and both achieved immortality. In the silence of time, the echo of their struggles still whispers. Greatness is not in victory, but in the fight itself.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel Every Storybeats with a Lesson for more amazing history stories. And tell us in the comments what you thought about this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.